Zion was a man of measured habits. He awoke every day at 6 a.m., not because he had to, but because the silence of dawn reminded him that the world was still capable of peace. In a city whose name had become synonymous with political unrest, corruption, and growing violence, that silence felt sacred. The sky outside his small apartment in Block 19 was pale gray, a neutral color, like the moral line he often walked in life. His apartment was modest but clean. Books lined the shelves, titles ranging from Arabic philosophy and Urdu poetry to Greek ethics and modern psychology. On his desk sat a worn copy of Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, beside a framed photograph of his late father, who had once been a soldier before he became a librarian. Zion often said, "My father left the gun for the pen, and I'm just following his footprints in the dust." Zion taught social sciences at a government school. He had neither fame nor wealth, but his students often described him as the teacher who listened with his soul. He never raised his voice. He never punished in anger. And yet, students feared disappointing him more than any slap or reprimand. There was a gravity in his quiet nature. That Monday morning was supposed to be like any other. But fate does not knock with a warning. Outside, as he walked toward the bus stop, he saw an old man struggling with a broken cart. The man's knees shook, and the wheels had come loose. Dozens passed him by, eyes fixed on phones, or pretending not to notice. Zion paused. For 5 seconds, he considered whether to help. He was already late. And then came the choice. He stepped forward. "Let me help you." The man looked at him, confused and overwhelmed. "Josakala, Beta. May you never see hardship." Zion fixed the cart with a piece of string he found nearby. He bought the man tea and sat with him for a few minutes. What he didn't realize was that this act of kindness was being watched, not by God, not by a secret agency, but by a 17-year-old boy named Imran, sitting on the opposite bench, whose mind was full of chaos, guilt, and confusion. Imran had been recruited by a local gang. That very day, he was supposed to commit his first act of violence to prove himself. But something about Zion's gesture broke through the fog in his mind. The world didn't feel as dark anymore. And that's where everything began to change. Later that day, Zion was teaching a lesson on ethics. He wrote on the board, "What is the difference between what is legal and what is right?" Hands shot up. Students debated. A girl named Marnoor gave an example of how apartheid was once legal. Another, Sami, brought up the story of Imam Ali, who refused to take unjust revenge on a man who had insulted him, choosing justice over ego. Zion listened, smiled, and asked, "So what would you do if you had power?" Imran, silent all class, finally spoke. "Sir, maybe it's not about power. Maybe it's about choice." Zion turned. "What do you mean?" Imran's eyes were firm. "Power is an illusion if you always wait to have it before doing the right thing. A man with no power can still make a choice. You did this morning." The room went still. Some students looked confused. Others understood. Zion said nothing, but something inside him shifted. That evening, as he walked home, a car screeched near him. 2 men in black got out. "Stay away from the boy," one said. "You don't know what you've done." And just like that, Zion's quiet world shattered. Zion had never been a man of confrontation. But that night, as he locked his door and drew the curtains, he realized that avoidance would no longer protect him. The warning from the 2 strangers echoed in his head. "You don't know what you've done." He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. His mind kept returning to Imran, the quiet boy who had never raised a hand in class, but whose eyes now held the flicker of rebellion, or perhaps redemption. Was Zion responsible for him? Did that moment on the bench grant him a duty he had not asked for? His father once told him, "Silence is not always peace, my son. Sometimes it is surrender." Zion never understood what that meant until now. The next morning, he found Imran waiting outside the school gates. He was bruised, one eye swelling, lip cut. Zion's heart sank. "What happened?" "They know I didn't go through with it," Imran said. "They said I made them look weak." Zion wanted to tell him to go to the police, but even that felt like a trap. The local police were as much a part of the problem as the gangs. He had heard stories, seen what happened to boys who tried to escape the web of organized crime. Many disappeared. Others were found. Instead, he invited Imran into the staff lounge, made him tea, bandaged his face with tissues soaked in cold water. "You have a choice," Zion said. Even now, Imran looked down. "Do I? What if every road leads to ruin?" Zion thought for a moment, then walked to the whiteboard in the lounge and wrote 3 quotes. "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Martin Luther King Jr. "Speak the truth, even if it is against yourself." Prophet Muhammad, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Socrates, "These aren't just words. They're bridges, not roads. They take you away from where you are. You just have to walk them." Imran was silent, but he copied the quotes into his notebook. That week, Zion found himself followed twice. Once at the market, once after school. No direct threats, just the silent pressure of being watched. He stopped staying late, began keeping the lights off at night. He started reading Plato's Apology, the trial of Socrates. He remembered how Socrates, accused of corrupting the youth, chose death over silence. The question burned in Zion's chest. Would I have done the same? The principal summoned him. "Zion Sahib, I heard you've been counseling a troubled student." Imran, "Yes." The principal lowered his voice. "I was warned. Not by parents, but by ... people. They say you're interfering where you shouldn't. I want to help, but my hands are tied." Zion nodded. "So you're telling me to stop?" "I'm telling you to survive." Zion left the office with his head high, but his heart heavy. That night, Imran didn't come to school, nor the next day. Zion asked around. A friend of Imran's said he had been taken to the hills, a known euphemism for forced initiation into violence. He sat at his desk, unable to teach. His students watched him closely. He wrote on the board again, "What is the price of silence?" The chalk broke in his hand. Zion went home and recorded a video, just his face, no names, no locations, just truths. He spoke about the pain of watching students fall into darkness, about systems that crushed young minds, about how the silence of good people was not peace, it was complicity. He didn't call for rebellion, he called for awakening. He uploaded the video anonymously. By morning, it had 10,000 views. And that's when the real consequences began.
The viral video sparked mixed reactions. Some praised Zayn's courage. Others warned him anonymously. Memories returned Zayn's own childhood during conflict when a teacher named Mr. Farouk shielded him from forced recruitment. That man's quiet bravery had saved dozens. Zayn visited Mr. Farouk's grave, whispering, "You lit my path. Now it's my turn." He returned home to a letter slipped under his door, "Speak again, and you won't speak ever again." Meanwhile, a former student, Noja, now a journalist, reached out, She wanted to interview him. He declined but asked her to cover the hidden youth movement growing in schools. The story began to take root beyond his city. A week later, Manyo, his brightest student, organized a debate on justice using examples from Imam Ali Raw, Gandhi and Mandela. Zayn quietly watched. The youth were awakening. Elsewhere, a new teacher joined the school. Yusuf, young and full of fire, challenged Zayn's calm approach. "You're still too passive," he said. Zayn answered sometimes. Restraint is louder than rage. Later, Yusuf would prevent a violent fight in school by quoting Zayn's ethics class. A butterfly flapped its wing and a storm was diverted. The school received an order from the district office. Shut down the ethics course. Zayn refused. The pressure mounted. Religious leaders and political activists painted him as divisive. Even some parents pulled their children out. Zayn responded by launching an underground reading circle in a small library near his home. He quoted Imam Ali Ra, "A man is either your brother in faith or your equal in humanity." That line became a whisper in the streets. Zayn began experiencing panic attacks. He felt like a hollow statue in front of his students. He turned to Rumi's poetry and Carl Jung's shadow self, facing his trauma. He admitted something to himself. "I'm afraid not of death, but of dying without having tried." He burned his father's war medals, not in anger, but in closure. That night, he saw his reflection in the mirror, aging, tired, but still burning with conviction. He smiled faintly. Nadia's news story was published nationwide. Zayn's video was revealed to be his. Death threats intensified, but so did invitations to universities, media, human rights forums. He finally accepted one. On stage, he quoted Martin Luther King Jr., "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." That same night, his apartment was raided. He barely escaped. On the run, Zayn wrote a letter to his younger self. It was filled with regrets, hopes, and truth. Nadia published it anonymously. It read in part, "You will learn that doing right often leads to pain, but you will also learn pain is not the enemy. Cowardice is." The letter went viral across the country. Students began reading it in classrooms, turning it into a campaign of youth reflection called Letters to My Future Self. A riot broke out at a protest Ogo. In school censorship, Manor was nearly trampled. Yusuf shielded her but was badly injured. Zayn, watching from a rooftop, rushed down and carried him out. The city finally saw what silence had done. Schools reopened their ethics programs. Investigations into youth exploitation were ordered, but the price had been high. Imran's whereabouts remained unknown years later. Zayn returned to teaching. His beard grayed, his eyes calmer. The school library was renamed in his honor. One morning, he saw a boy outside helping an old man with a broken cart. He smiled. A student asked him, "Sir, why are you smiling?" Zayn replied, "Because I saw the future make a choice.